Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Bri Marshall on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from South Carolina. She might be our first guest from South Carolina. We might have had one, but again, I've had so many guests that really, these states, I really have no idea at this point, but she's 21 years old, which, I got to say it out there because, only I was 21 again. I'm only 5 years away from that, but still, she's also a bodybuilder coming to us, and she's also an online coach, and she's going to the University of South Carolina, which I actually have a funny story about that. So I had a friend in high school who wore a shirt that said, "I love Cox baseball," and we all thought it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But and then I had to learn that, it's South Carolina, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Bri, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Well, I got to ask, first of all, what's the weather like in South Carolina today?
Well, today it's a little bit chilly actually. So start about in the 50s and staying about 70. So yeah.
I have never heard of 50s in anything in any of the southern states ever. I don't know, but it's about like the same temperature here, but we at least get, the leaves are already starting to change and stuff like that. So this is the time of the year that I think a lot of people, obviously enjoy. But before we get into that, because I don't want to, curse myself and say that the weather's great, and then like Minnesota weather, if you don't, it's the most bipolar thing on the planet. Why don't you give us your backstory and what really inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
Well, so I started out playing soccer. So I played soccer my entire life. I wanted to play in college and, eventually go pro in soccer. So that was the original goal. I made it to the Division 1 level in college. So I right before I went to report for uh, college there. My senior year, I got my fourth concussion. So it was so bad that I had to do speech therapy, occupational therapy, cognitive therapy. Had to relearn how to drive. So basically, I had to start from zero. I got released right before it was time for me to go to the Citadel Military College of South Carolina to play, because before you even start school, you have to go through their basic training and everything they call Hell Week. So I went there, shaved my head, did everything they had to do, and went through the whole week. And the symptoms started coming back from my last concussion, and so they wouldn't let me play. They took me to all these special doctors and everything, and the doctors were like, it'd be life threatening if you continue to play. So they sent me home. I was going back and forth. Well, should I, try and recover and overcome this and, keep playing, or should I just, find something else to do? So, I tried, recovering, obviously, to get rid of the headaches. I had headaches from, I think it was like August to January almost. Um, so during that time, we made the decision, we shouldn't play contact sports anymore. So at that point, I was, dealing with depression, losing my whole life goal basically. Um, and then with depression, I gained a whole bunch of weight. Um, but throughout high school and everything, I always looked at, CrossFitters and bodybuilders and like, wow, I wish I looked like that. That would be so cool. So just one day I was like, I'm tired of being fat. I'm tired of the way I look. And, I'm eating the same thing I was eating when I played soccer, but I don't look the same. So I decided to do something about it. And I was like, let's give bodybuilding a try. I have the time now, so let's do it. So I started that in April 2018. I had to lose a whole bunch of weight first before I even did the show. So my first show, I didn't look, like a bodybuilder at all. But you never look good on your first show anyway. So, but yeah, that's how I got started.
One of the questions that I love to ask everyone that's in the health and fitness realm when they first get started, because I always say if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to that overall package that people end up seeing. What was that experience like for you? Because if you were to walk up to someone and say, "Hey, what'd you train for this body part? It looks amazing," what works best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you. And it's all about just figuring out, through trial and error, what that's gonna take for you to get the best results.
Yeah. So, it was for me, it was transitioning from, weight training and agility training for soccer into, breaking it down body part by body part. So my split, I think I started, um, doing just one specific thing each day. I honestly, when I started, I didn't take that many rest days. Weirdly enough, I just thought like they weren't that important. Um, so I did that for a good year before I think maybe I took like one rest day a week, maybe once every 2 weeks when I started. Um, so it was just kind of like that, and most of my training was higher volume when I first started, so more reps and everything. And yeah, I was trying to lift heavy, but at that point when I started, it wasn't as intense as I train now. So like now I know how to train till failure. You know, try and lift heavier and progress each training session now. So
Yeah. I mean, and that's, and we hear that a lot as well, but I love to talk genetics on the podcast because it's one thing, especially in this day and age where everyone's on social media and, everyone's looking at these photos of other people and saying, oh my God, like I want her arms, I want their abs, I want his back, people just don't understand that you can only be the best version of yourself. I mean, and anytime I can promote that, I will, just because we have so many times where, I mean, you don't know how that person got to that look. You don't know how they maintain it. I mean, you don't know the dedication that they have. I mean, maybe their food. I mean, there's just so many little things where if I were to say, hey, I want Rich Piana's arms or something like that, it's like, oh, that's not going to happen. It's just not. So, but I always love to ask because whenever someone first gets started, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, and then they have that one body part that just legs behind it. They have to train to oblivion. I mean, I'll give you mine first. My back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of being in warehouses and lifting and loading boxes, and you either got a really nice back or you quit. But also being 6'3", my legs and my lower body are just shot where, I mean, I could train legs every single day. And like I said, I could inject pure muscle into my thighs and calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, I don't know how that's possible, but what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
definitely my legs. Just came from soccer. I always get asked all the time, like, "Well, I want legs like you. What do you do? What do you do?" And it's like, well, I played soccer since I was 3 up until I was 18, so that. um, but so I mean, legs weren't that big of a deal for me. It was my upper body. But when I even played soccer, I didn't want to be that stereotype. Well, you just have strong legs, like your upper body's weak. So I tried throughout my training to add in upper body when I trained for soccer too. So I mean, I guess I was kind of symmetrical all around, but my legs were definitely more developed, more muscle maturity through my legs for sure.
Which, even though you have a jacket on, we can still see that your upper body is pretty well developed. So you've done a good job with that. And I love asking that question because everyone's answers are different. I mean, and it just really shows that everyone's different, and you're not gonna get the same cookie cutter results if you follow. It's everything's got to be so individualized, and it's, again, like I said, it's a lot of trial and error, which I think is, a reason why it's so rare for people in our generation to get into this lifestyle, because everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday. Where this is the one thing where, you're going to have to put your work into it, and it's really going to, take a lot of time and effort. But I love to talk myths and stereotypes on this podcast too. And we talked about this briefly before I started recording is, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are still, unfortunately, so many women that still have that fear that if they walk into the weight room and they pick up one weight, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And first of all, if that does happen to you, give me a call, because I would spend my entire life savings just to talk to you and train with you once, because you have found the secret that almost every guy is looking for, and a lot of women are looking for too. Did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't have that fear, how do you like to respond to that now? Because I bet you hear that all the time from people.
Yeah, I've actually had somebody, inquire with me for coaching. They're like, "Well, I want to get toned. I want to build muscle, but I don't want to look like you." And I'm like, "Oh, all right. Well, it won't happen overnight. So, you
And,
can
and
all,
if it does, give me a call, okay? If that
yeah,
does happen,
right,
just let me know. Yeah.
right." And the thing is, like, if you start seeing, yourself as too muscular in a way, like you can always hold back, like just, calm down your training. All right, take it a little bit slower. Um, and the thing is, like the girls that don't want to get too bulky, they're not gonna do what it takes to put on that much muscle anyway. So they won't be able to achieve what they're, seeing on Instagram and everything anyway. So
Absolutely. People just have this fear where they think that, all the muscle that I put on, I'm gonna have to. It's never gonna be able to go away. So yeah, that's just a myth that I really just cannot state enough. Is just it's not gonna happen. But one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than men, it impacts men too, but is that confidence boost that working out gives you. We have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who, it's just helped them better every single aspect of their lives. And that's one thing that I always say you can take from the gym is that confidence boost. How have you personally taken that confidence boost that working out has gives you and use it to impact your life in a positive way?
so I mean, when I go into the gym and train, like I'm just focused on myself. I'm not worried about, who's over here, is anybody looking at me, blah blah blah. I just use that time for myself because I mean I have a busy schedule anyway, so that's my time. But I don't know. It's just the more I'm addicted, honestly, if you want to put it that way. Because to me, every session makes me better. I see progress every day. And the more I see progress, the more I feel better in myself, like physically and mentally. And it's a good stress reliever too. So
I mean, the benefits that you get from this lifestyle, I mean, vastly outweigh, the struggles that you have to go through. But talking about the struggles, I mean, people don't realize this is so much more of a mental journey than it is a physical journey. And it's because they only see the physical results. If you look at someone, you're never going to be able to tell, like the mental adjustments that have taken place in that person. But when it comes to this whole transformation, how would you say your mental journey has been impacted by this? Because, like I said, you're not going to be able to tell just by looking at someone that the amount of mental conditioning that they've had to do, and it's much harder than the physical aspect. I mean, you can wake up and convince yourself to work out, but just the nutrition and doing everything in this lifestyle, that really takes a toll mentally on a lot of people.
yeah. So I mean, I'm a big planner. So if I don't, have a set schedule or anything, everything's going to go down the gutter. So with me personally, having a plan helps set the tone for each week. For me, along the journey, my mental strength has definitely increased a whole bunch. Because I remember like being in the gym when I first started and worrying about, well, they're looking at me like, you know, and you would hear these comments, well, she looks like a man, blah blah blah. And so that started to, get to me when I first, started my journey and everything. But now it's like, well, if you look at the average man in America, no, I look a whole lot better than that.
Well,
So
I always say too, what kind of men are you hanging out with then? If you think that that looks like a man, so I want to, go to your concert, or I want to go to like your, I don't even know. I always just say that because that just fascinates me. Where I was like, okay, you might want to check and see if they're actually men that you're hanging out with then. But yeah, I mean, that's why I like to have women on this podcast because yeah, they go through definitely a lot more when it comes to, the stereotypes than I think the men do, unfortunately. But yeah, that just the mental aspect is just so wide and so vast. But what was that first prep like for you when you had to first deal with those restrictions? Because that's a whole, mind conundrum in and of itself.
oh yeah, it was definitely very difficult. And looking back, like I know, like I did not follow it the way I should have. Because during my first prep, I remember going on family vacation, and I would have a cheat meal every night of vacation, so I'd have dinner with my family. Um, but like just seeing how much I've grown from that has been insane. But like the start, I would get invited to go places. I was a freshman in college at that point, I think, or a sophomore or something. And it was it was kind of sucked a little bit. So I had to learn like what was actually important, like what's going to actually help me in the long run. Is this one party with these girls going to, help me down the line? No. You know, is this drink going to help me down the line? No, definitely not. Um, so like now, like back then, food used to be like a big thing for me. Well, if I don't have this cookie, like I'm gonna be very upset and everything. And but now it's just like, well, food's always gonna be there. So get your shit done now. and the rewards will come later.
I have to object to that slightly because my idea for actually starting this podcast came to me at a party where people were talking to me and they're like, "You should start a podcast, dude. You got the voice for it. You're like a natural." So in rare circumstances, I will say the party might actually benefit more than the long term. But what she's saying is 99.99 repeating about 10,000 times true. But there's always that one in like 10 billion trillion where it happens. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I just like to, yeah. So everyone, yes, the podcast was conceived really at a party where, and I didn't even know what I was going to talk about, but everyone was just like, you just talk a ton, you got that voice, you could definitely do it. So that's the backstory as I'd like to say it. But I mean, now we got to talk nutrition because people don't realize that is 80 to 90% of the results that you see in the gym. And I still have friends who, God bless them, to this day, they still say I could eat 3 pizzas a week and go out for burgers the other 2 nights and I'll still be able to look good. And it's like, yeah, because you're 25. Call me in 10 years and see how that works. Now, luckily you're younger than me, so you still have probably even better metabolism than me. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you first got started really taking bodybuilding seriously?
So when I first started, like looking back, like it was very little food. Like, because I mean, now I have a new coach now, than when I first started. So the food changes have changed dramatically. So my first couple years of starting, or I guess the first year, what am I saying? I haven't been in the game that long, but when I first started, it was like, if you're getting closer to the show, about 5 weeks out, it was like tilapia and asparagus, all 6 meals. Um, so I was basically just like starving the entire time. And then when I started as my new coach, I've been eating more food than I ever have when I first started. It's changed a lot. So it's definitely gone up and down, but
It's another thing. It's that this is always an ever evolving process. You're never gonna find what works exactly for you, and if you do, your body's just gonna adapt to it in like a month or so. So it's always about changing things up. But what was your family's reaction like when you just announced to them, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder now? It's not something that I think a lot of parents hear from their college age daughter.
no, definitely not. So like nobody in my family has ever done bodybuilding, never even like looked at it or anything. And um, there's always that stereotype, well, bodybuilding, steroids, bodybuilding, ah, okay. So when I first started and brought up the idea to them, they're like, okay. And they're not going to tell me no because they're very supportive anyway. So but as we got deeper into it and started learning more about the sport and everything, they've gained a huge amount of respect for it. Even my grandma, she's been with us throughout the whole process too, so she's gained more respect for it. And they see it as an art, so they don't see it as, well, the girl's just getting up on a stage in a blinged out suit and being sexual on stage and stuff like that. And it's not like that. And I think that's what it originally started looking like when we first started. But now they have a good respect for it. So but they've been supportive throughout the whole process. They've seen what I've been through and everything, and they just want me to reach my goals. So
And that's so great too because we've heard stories that go either way where they have a lot of support or they don't. So I mean, it's just having that support system really does make the difference for so many people. But I mean, what is it like for you during the holidays these last few years? Because now, as we're approaching the season of pumpkin pie, where I mean, I'm just planning on gaining probably about another 10 pounds, and Thanksgiving, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, I mean, I'm still gonna pig out. But what's these last few holidays been like for you, especially now that you've gotten into this?
so last year for the holidays, I really didn't enjoy the holiday typical foods. Because I mean, I started my prep back in August-ish. So like, yeah. So yeah, I had a little bit of Thanksgiving, but it was more like just portioned out a little bit better. Um, but there wasn't any of the good desserts or anything, no pumpkin pie, no, none of the good stuff. But and like Christmas time, none of the cookies. And I stuck to the plan to a T throughout the holidays last year. And now that the food is just in a routine, I'll probably take a meal or so throughout these holidays now this year. and enjoy the time with my family, since I won't be on prep. But yeah, missing out, it's fine. I'll bring my Tupperware.
One of the biggest struggles that I understood was, just that same bland, stuff that you eat day after day. Do you like put any spices or anything in it to, make it taste a little bit better? Or are there any things that you do to it to, sort of make it not just the same bland chicken or the same bland, whatever you eat?
Oh yeah, so like I'm always if you look at my cabinets in my kitchen, I basically have the Walmart of spices. And like if you open my fridge, I'm a sugar-free sauce whore, okay? Like the whole shelves on the side of the fridge door is nothing but sauces and stuff. So I definitely look at different recipes and whatever and try and make it healthy to where it fits my macros or fits, my meals. Um so I just kind of turn things into my own, basically. And now I don't know. I just like variety too. So, and my coach definitely allows for variety. He gives me more freedom with my food, so I'm able to, make different meals and whatever. Like, you don't have to stick. Yeah, basics are good, but you don't have to stick to the basics all the time. Like, because that's not going to be sustainable. You're not going to be able to stick with it the entire time if it's just bland food all the time.
Whereas I'm the freak where I could eat ramen noodles just plain without even anything in them. I just put the noodles in, and then, or I even eat oatmeal without anything in it. I'll just make, plain regular oatmeal and just have it where, I am weird like that. So I kind of understand that diet a little bit. But one thing that is the most shocking for me when I started this podcast, I had a little familiarity with it because, I'd known a few bodybuilders in college, but is that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I would have never guessed it in a million years. I mean, I like to compare it to you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Um, so really I've just been studying. So ever since I started just watching YouTube. YouTube is great. Um so like I just watch show after show of, figure competitors and um I just sat there and like copied them basically and then I found what I thought looked best and then leading up to Junior USA's and the shows this year I actually, worked with opposing coach Matt Huggins, um, and he just gave me little tweaks and he really didn't have to change my posing for figure that much because I had, practiced it my own and, made it my own. So um it's, been a process like everything else. But, I think when you actually dive into your craft and, you take the time to study and just like taking the time for training and nutrition, everything, comes out on the end.
Did you start in figure or did you start in bikini and moved up, or were you always just a figure girl?
Now, as always figure, yeah.
Okay, good. Because yeah, I was gonna say those bikini girls. I mean, you got to have your own sass and stuff like that, and that's something you're born with, basically. And I would never have had that, walking on a stage. I talk a lot of game now and stuff like that, but the moment I'm on that stage, I'm just like a statue, just barely walking. So yeah, I couldn't imagine that. But
Yeah, when I first started, one, I looked at the bikinis and bikini girls, and I was like, "That's definitely not my personality." Kudos to them for being able to swing it around on stage like that. But that just wasn't me. When I started, I got suggestions for my figure posing to add a little bit more sass just because I was like so discreet with it. And yep, exactly, a robot basically. So I added my own little sass because I do have a little bit of sassy attitude sometimes. So I just added that into my posing, and just everything flows now. So
she's a Southern girl. She naturally has a tad bit of sass in her, I guess. So but but yeah, and I mean, I always hear on this podcast that for especially for the women, the hardest thing for them when it comes to their posing, especially the figure girls, is just learning how to flare their lats. What was that like for you? Yep,
when I
we get that reaction every time. Yep.
when I first started, like I could not figure it out for anything. Like I honestly don't know how it happened, but it just happened. Like I just kept trying and trying, and eventually it clicked. And I didn't have anybody tell me how to do it. I just kind of moved my body until it actually worked. So it was a process, but
Well, that's again why I like to have this podcast. No one would have ever known that in a million years. That especially for women, that lat spread is really really hard, and just flaring those lats. And but yeah, it just yeah, with anything in life, of hard work and determination, and eventually, I mean, you will figure it out. But out of your poses that you do, because for anyone that's not familiar with, figure girls only do 4 poses. What is your favorite pose, and what is your least favorite pose?
Um, I mean, I guess my favorite for figure, I guess my model pose. Um, Least favorite, I I don't know. I don't really have a least favorite. Um, I guess I don't really particularly like figure posing as much as women's physique posing. So, I mean, I do plan on growing into women's physique eventually. So that's my goal, anyways. So I don't know. You can be more creative with women's physique. So
Yeah, and with physique, I mean, you got to put on a good 10 to 20 pounds of muscle when you're moving from figure to physique. So it's gonna take a while. But yeah, I think yeah, just looking at some of your photos, yeah, she's probably gonna do a lot better, in like 2 or 3 years in physique. But yeah, it's a growing process. It's not gonna happen overnight. But I always said if I ever competed, my back pose, just because, not even because my back's good, but just because that's the one pose where I can put my smile down. I wouldn't have to, have that fake smile on all the time, because we hear from so many people that that smile is your smile or your mouth might be the most sore thing after these shows, because you got to have yeah smile the whole time. Yeah, just not used to that. But another thing that I love to talk about, because as you can tell, my thick Norwegian skin, I mean, I could walk outside right now, even though it's cloudy, and I'd probably still find a way to get sunburned. I mean, I either get burnt to an absolute crisp, or I get farmer's tan. Well, let's be honest, that is not a real tan. So I look at bodybuilders and I'm just like, oh, those lucky people, because they get to be tan for one day. But what is that experience like for you when you get that tan on, and what's that feel like? Because we hear so many times that a lot of people comment on, like, you really see your muscles pop. You see muscles that you never even knew that you had, and everything really seems put together at the end. What is that moment like for you when you finally take that look in the mirror and you see all that spray tan on? And you barely recognize yourself, but then you just realize, like, hey, I'm good to go.
yeah, it's definitely just puts the cherry on top. Because by that time you're getting your tan on, you're already, you're changing by the hour at that point. So when you get that final coat of tan on, you're ready to go, and it's a really good feeling. Um, yeah, you don't look like your parents at all. Like for me, I look like a whole nother ethnicity, but it's definitely cool. And just everything pops a whole lot more because like I was very pale before I got the tans anyways. So you
I'm
know
just telling everyone, just look at the light reflecting off of my skin on this side, everyone. If you want to get a good idea of how pale, I'm a natural reflector of light. So which is why, like, if I ever go like shirtless at a beach, like it's kind of like in Twilight, except it's not sexy and hot at all. It's literally just people just like being blinded by me. And it's kind of like Indiana Jones when they open up the ark at the end and everyone's face kind of boils down. That's the best way I can describe it, just because the paleness is just, oh my, I mean, if anyone ever needs to like have a picture of like what white is supposed to look like, just take a picture of this side right here. Basically, I mean, that's about as clear as it can go. But what's that moment like for you when you get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
my stage presence has definitely like changed a lot. I've gained a whole bunch of confidence on the stage anyway. So this last show at Junior USA's, I was the most confident I ever been on stage. I, maintained eye contact with the judges the entire time. I was like, this is me, like choose me because I am it. Okay. But it's adrenaline rush, honestly, and it's a really good feeling. I wish we got more stage time, honestly, than the 30 seconds, but it's the best 30 seconds you could ask for, honestly.
Which is why I always say that bodybuilders are the true real athletes, because I mean, like you said, you do this for months to get ready to walk on stage for 30 seconds. Any other athlete, they're on stage or they're on their field or whatever, the gridiron, whatever stage they're on for, like maybe 100 times a year for, hours at a time. So it just shows the dedication that goes into this, that I mean, it's like they're willing to put themselves through that just to go on stage for that amount of time. I mean, that's what I think is so impressive about this sport. But another myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast, because so many people, I think it's because of Instagram and other things like that as well, they have that myth that a lot of them think that bodybuilders, oh, you must be in shape like that 24/7. You must look like you look on stage that for, all the time, because there's shows like Biggest Loser and stuff where people go on and they lose, 200 pounds, and some of them are able to keep it off. And I got to repeat that some of them, they did a study and it's only like 10 to 15% of them actually keep the weight off after the show. But people look at shows like that and a lot of times I think they just equate that with bodybuilding, where they just assume, oh, they've worked just as hard, if not harder, as those people, so they must be able to keep off the weight like a lot of them do. But it's definitely not the case. What was that like for you when you first found out that, hey, all this hard work that I put into this, I'm not going to be able to maintain it? And has it gotten easier for you as your competitions have gone on?
Yeah, so after my first show, it was uh very hard for me because like I had what they call the post show blues, and I gained a whole bunch of weight because one, I didn't reverse correctly, and so I gained a whole bunch of weight very fast. Um so that was hard seeing myself, because I felt like at that point I was like, well, I just lost all this weight to get to this show, and now I'm back to square one, and that was really hard for me, but it has gotten better as I've gone along, especially this year, because I actually reversed correctly like I was supposed to. I didn't go out binging on cheap foods and everything, and I think that has a big thing to do with how my coach approached my prep too, because he was always checking on me mentally throughout the entire prep. If he said to me since day one, he's like, if you feel like you're about to crack on this prep, like you need to let me know ahead of time and I'll guide you through it. So that helped out a bunch. So I didn't feel the need to, oh well, I got to eat everything in sight now, because I wasn't even like hungry at that point. So um, I don't know. It's definitely gotten a lot better. Uh, I keep posting pictures from the show day and everything, like a couple days after, a couple days before, and I people keep commenting, "Oh, you look so great," and it's like I don't look like that right now, but I mean, I like the way I look now, so I mean, it's not you know um, a bad thing necessarily. So, which I mean, I'll post some pictures of me recently, here soon, but like I just have so many good ones, I want to post them. But um, I don't know. It's definitely gotten a lot easier because now I understand like I have to gain body fat now. I need to be healthier. And in order for my body to function correctly now, I have to gain body fat. And I was getting tired of being as lean as I was, honestly, because everything hurt, nothing felt good. I didn't feel good. Yeah, you look great. That's the good part of it. And but the part is, you don't feel that great. Uh, but I mean, now my strength is going up every day. Eating a whole bunch of food. I'm not like eating food either. So I don't look fat, honestly. Um, yeah, I have a couple of moments here and there where I'm just like, wow, I don't look good at all. Like, where are my abs, And like, my abs didn't stay, with me that long, but, it is what it is. You can't have abs 24/7, 365. So,
Yeah, and I just gotta say this: you still look better than 99.99% of people your age, and I gotta say that to bodybuilders because I know with the body dysmorphia that occurs in this sport, you'll look in the mirror and you'll be like, "Oh, I don't look good at all," and it's like, really? Let's have everyone else stand next to you and then see how you look compared to them. So that's another thing that you really have to deal with. But a training technique that I love to talk about on here, because I was familiar with it like a lot of things before I started this podcast, but I didn't really incorporate it until I started having guests on here, is time under tension. Do you like to do a lot of time under tension in your workouts?
yeah. Um, I mainly just focus on lifting heavy with good form till failure. So, um, for time under tension, yeah, for certain exercises, like for glutes and everything, but for everything else, not really. That's not really something I focus on.
Which, I mean, for me, that's what I do now for legs too. Basically, like for upper body, I just do the regular stuff, kind of, sort of as well. But a thing that's related to that is the mind to muscle connection. Because if you were to talk to anyone in the public, they would have no idea what you're talking about when you say that. But it's that connection that you feel, and it takes people so long to achieve that when they get started. I mean, it's not something that you're going to walk into the gym and all of a sudden feel it. And the fact that, I mean, let's say you feel it for your arms, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to feel it for your legs or your shoulders or your back. I mean, it's really body part to body part. But how long into your, you know, bodybuilding life before you really start to feel that mind to muscle connection in certain body parts?
Probably from, I guess I really started noticing it last October. So I guess it's been a year of actually feeling it right. Because I mean, I started in April 2018, so that long, taking a good while. Um, but I don't even remember like when I started. I don't remember actually even thinking about. Well, I probably didn't even know like what mind muscle connection was. So um, it's definitely changed drastically, but it hasn't been with me very long. But
Well, again, if you would have said like, "Hey, I had it when I first got started," I'd be like, "Okay, maybe that's not the truth." But last question that I'm going to ask you before we get into coronavirus, because that's a whole topic in and of itself, is I did right before New Year's of last year, I did a question to all my viewers saying, what's one body part everyone's looking forward to training the most and growing the most this coming year? The answers were arms, abs, shoulders, back, glutes, hamstrings, calves, because that's my number one pet peeve. I'm like Johnny Drama from Entourage, where I don't have calves at all, being as tall as I am. But the answer by far was like, it won by, I think it was like 11%, was arms. So I always got to ask the guests that come on, because you said your upper body struggled and you have a very nice upper body now. What does an arm day look like for you?
arm day. I don't know. I guess I start with a incline dumbbell curl, just to get a nice good stretch on the bicep. Uh, I mean, now I changed my split to legs pull push, so I don't really have a specific arm day. Um, yeah.
But again,
So
she's a figure competitor, so I do got to put that out there. Where it's like, if you're a figure competitor and you come out there, with big arms, you got to be so proportioned when it comes to figure as well.
yeah, I mean, I do enjoy arm day, honestly, and doing training arms. Just because I love being able to just like throw up your guns or whatever and show off every now and then because um that's always fun to
Well, you
do.
mentioned you
But
like to show off. Let's see the guns right now.
uh
Okay, yeah, you're still looking. They still probably are better than anyone else that's here.
yeah, I mean, it like I said, it's not all that great,
Oh
but
my god, are you kidding me? Look at that, everyone. Here, hold that for a second. That's ridiculous. That's insane. Okay. Yeah, anyone that says different is absolutely ridiculous. 21 years old? Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's ridiculous. But yeah, with arms, it's always, and also focus on the tricep too, everyone. That's one thing that a lot of people don't understand is, it's like 75%. So, that has to look good as well. But I mean, we got to talk about coronavirus, because that's something that's impacted all of our lives in more ways than we could have ever understood in our entire lives. I mean, I always ask the question at the end of the podcast, and I'll ask it to you at the end. If we could talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at? If anyone would have bet last year that we'd be in the midst of a global pandemic, I would have bet my entire life savings against them. So, hindsight is 2020. But what has this pandemic been like for you personally? Because I mean, being a college student, it's extra special because I mean, my older brother, he graduated last summer, so it was interesting for him as well. But what's this whole pandemic like been like for you?
so it started I guess when I was switching majors at that point. So, I mean, I didn't really like going into my classes anyways. So, um, it just made everything a whole lot easier for me, honestly, as school wise, because I like online classes anyway. So, that it was a booster for me. But I was still working multiple jobs at that point, and not having any of them really just kind of put me at like, well, what am I supposed to do with my day? Like I was honestly very bored. Um, I continuously just like walked forever. Like I bought a treadmill and because I was, well, how am I gonna, get my cardio in? What am I gonna do? So I went and bought a treadmill, like a cheap one at Walmart, and it's been with me ever since. And I would just like walk and watch, my classes online or, do homework and whatever. But I still had my online coaching, so that was still coming through. Um, and I don't know, it was hard at first, and then it got me in the habit of not doing really having a set schedule or anything, and it did teach me how to cook better, honestly, because I've come up with so many different recipes. Now I'm determined. Well, one day I'm gonna like publish a meal prepping recipe book. Like that's one of my projects in the making. But it definitely got me more creative with my meals. And I don't know, it definitely made me a lot stronger mentally as well. Just because of me not knowing like when my show is actually going to be, but still in prep for it. Um, because my the Junior USA's got canceled, I think like 5 or 7 weeks out. Um, so at that point, I was like, all right, well, that just gives me more time. But then, like a couple days in, when it actually hit me that I don't have a show right around the corner, like I was, terrified. I was like, What the hell? What have I been doing?" And but then, I came back to the realization, well, it's just going to make me undeniable at this point. Um, and then when they set the date was in August, it's like, all right, cool. So we'll just keep working. And luckily, I did have access to a gym during the whole thing, so I was able to continue lifting. Um, Real weight. Okay, so a lot of people are like, well, how did you maintain and build muscle throughout the whole shutdown? Because I had access to actual weights. Because I mean, if you didn't, like, yeah, you can maintain it, but you're not gonna build anything, without any progression. So
I mean, I had to move back in with my parents, and they just have a simple setup downstairs where they have a treadmill, they have dumbbells, they have like one of those like machines where you can do everything like lat pull downs and everything on that on. But yeah, so I was just able to maintain basically myself. But I, similar to you, just started walking on the treadmill profusely, like 100-minute cardio sessions where I would just walk and get, like 8 or 9 miles, and I would watch a movie. But the only reason I stopped and haven't done it for like the last 2 weeks is because I ran out of movies to watch. Because so I did it for like 50. I did it like 50 days out of like 60 that I walked on it. And, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I ran out of movies that I like, that I have available to watch. Like I watched all the Netflix movies that I wanted to watch. I watched all the HBO movies that I wanted to watch. And it's like, yeah, because for me with cardio, I mean, I have to be entertained to do it. And that's why, like, I'm so glad that I graduated before this, because online classes, my ADD, I'd get nothing done. I have to be like in there in person. You have to have someone behind me, literally forcing me with their arm, like forcing me to drag my name and write everything down for like a paper. It's yeah. So I am glad that at least that happened. But were there any food shortages near you? Because we heard all throughout the country there were times where like meat was short. But was there anything like that around you?
yeah, so actually, when my coach honestly predicted it happening. So he was already telling me and everybody else on the teams and everything, like, go ahead and stock up your freezers now because it's going to happen. And sure enough, it did. I luckily was able to buy a fridge. So I already have one fridge in my house, and I bought another one, and it's on the patio. But as soon as that happened, I already had a Sam's Club membership, so I was just in there buying as much as I could, and just stocking it away. And yeah, people might say, "Well, that's just selfish," and it's like, well, I'm in a selfish sport to begin with, and I eat chicken constantly anyways. And then there was a point where beef was getting low in the stores, and that kind of drove me insane because you know if it wasn't, coronavirus time, like any other time, people would be buying, the 90% or the 85 or whatever. And for whatever reason, I don't know why this pandemic struck people to buy the healthier, leaner meats. And because I was noticing like the 99% ground turkey was gone, the 96% ground beef was starting to get low. And like now y'all choose to be healthy right now, really.
Yeah, and I found that just so fascinating too, that we all had to go through this and experience this. But how did you deal with the mental side effects of this pandemic as well? Because everyone's talking about like everything that's shut down and stuff that they couldn't do, but people aren't talking about like the vast mental health things that probably have gone down, that will have the shreds of it for the next few decades, of just how people have been affected by this. How have you adjusted to all this mentally? Because it's hard enough to physically adjust to this, but just mentally to adjust to this new lifestyle that we're probably going to have to live for maybe even in a whole nother year. It's a lot to think about.
I mean, I've always been kind of like a go with the flow type person. So, I mean, I just take things as it is. Yeah, I'm not really one for the masks and everything, but I'm not going to sit there and argue with you. And, I'll wear it. If you got to go in the store, like, you got to wear one anyway. So, either wear one or you don't get what you want. So, I mean, it is what it is. Mentally, uh, not being able to go out and do things, like, it doesn't really affect me because I really don't go out and do things anyways. So, I mean, really, my life is just like, bodybuilding, training, eating, schoolwork, and then work. So, like, I don't really go anywhere else. So, it really hasn't really affected me that much.
What's your college life been like doing this? Because I mean, if you were, dressed like the way you are right now and you walk into a classroom, I mean, you'd be the attention of like everyone. What's it been like sort of getting used to the fact that, I mean, I always compare bodybuilders to like mini celebrities when they walk, out in public and stuff because people are just so fascinated by it. What's that all been like for you sort of getting used to the fact that you might draw a lot more stares than you had previously?
Yeah. So I guess the beginning of the semester last fall is when I first started seeing like more stares here and there and everything. And yeah, it's kind of weird. And I would hear like little, whispers here and there, like, oh, she's so muscular. Like, wow, she looks like a dude, blah, blah. And it's like, okay. And I just walk around with my gallon jug, I'm just, walking around. Because I mean, there was points where I'd have to walk all the way across campus, and it's a big campus, so it'd be a 20-minute walk, just one way. And so I mean, I'd get used to, people staring at me, but I got to the point where I just didn't care. You know, I I'm not really my maturity level. I say this in the most humble way possible, but it's well way off than the college level is right now. And I know that I already have my mind set on something when I know the majority of college kids, they don't really know what they want to do, and they're not really looking to the future; they're looking in the now. And so I just kept that in mind. And when I was going into the classrooms when I was at my original major, I had a good bond with the people in my classes. I taught them more about bodybuilding, so they understood more, and so they respected me a good bit, and they didn't have any negative, things to say and everything. And if they saw somebody looking at me a certain way, they would say something, and um, it is what it is.
Well, yeah, it's just yeah, something that you got to adjust to. But a question that I love to ask because I mean this affects men too, but women so much more is the clothing options when it comes to being a bodybuilder. I mean, the moment that anyone looks at a bodybuilder, if you have big, broad shoulders, especially for women, dresses aren't going to be your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time where it's like they're not built for bodybuilders. What has this whole journey been like for you, clothing option wise? Because I mean, it gets really interesting, especially since you have to have your own prep wardrobe and you have to have your off season wardrobe. What has the whole clothing conundrum been like for you?
So I've gone through so many different sizes of everything. Um, you know, I it's really hard to find clothes that fit me and, look good in my opinion. Um, but I've tried to, I guess, find confidence in certain things that I feel like wouldn't be the right thing for me to wear, so to say, like certain cuts of dresses or whatever. But I don't know. It's a process. Like if I go to the mall, I'm spending a couple hours, like, and it's not going to be a quick, one stop shop. Um, but like jeans, that are one of the hardest things to buy. Um, and but when I find a pair that actually fit, oh, I grab them. Um, you know, uh and just like certain types of shirts and stuff, they make you look bigger than you actually are and stuff like that. So that used to bother me, like some women's tops, they'll like do like this little cuff thing, and I was like really like it bothered me a little bit to wear that stuff. But like now I have a whole another level of confidence in me, so like now I'll just wear whatever the hell I want to wear, but most of the time it's just easier to wear gym clothes every day. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's the answer that we hear of all the time. But if and also if someone were to walk up to you and say, Bree, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
um, that's a good question. um, you know, just shine a light more on the women aspect on it, because I feel like women aren't shown, their process as much as the men. Um, the men get spotlighted a whole lot more than the women, which I mean, I understand it started out as a men's sport, so I get that what that's where that comes from. So, but I think it is time that the women get some more spotlight on them. And then like prize money go up for women as well, because we put in just as much effort as the guys do through prep and um, so I think, the money needs to be raised and at least equalized or something. Um, but that's in all women's sports, honestly, too. So definitely make things more equal. Um, and yeah, show our side of things as well.
Well, yeah, I just think for bodybuilding in particular, just raise the money for both genders too, because I mean, this is not a sport that you're going to make money if you get into. I mean, it's like unless you're the number one bodybuilder on the planet, you are not making money in this. You are spending money. So then that even adds more to the conundrum where you're like, what is wrong with these people that they're going through all this to be on stage for 30 seconds and they're wasting, or they're not wasting money, but they're spending money to be on the. So yeah, if they could raise, yeah, but yeah, for men and women too, to make it equal. And I think like Alina Popa just did a few shows where the prize money is equal and stuff. So I totally agree with that, because yeah, the women have to work just as hard, if not even harder than the men when it comes down to it. So I totally get that. But now here comes the $1 million question. If we were to talk to you a year from today, now again, if you, I mean, I don't know what's gonna be like a year from now. I mean, I could have a raging fire behind me, and there could be gunshots going off in the back. I don't know what this next year is gonna be like. Alien invasion. I'm making a bold prediction there. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you would like to have achieved by then?
Um, I would at least like to be almost done with my master's degree for sure. I like to grow my, coaching, because I'm getting ready to launch my website anyways. So I hope, that's reached a very good level of success. I hope to have, at least been successful in my pro debut by then, because I really don't know when my pro debut is going to be, how long I'm taking off. But I hope by, within the next year that has happened. I hope my career is more successful altogether.
And I honestly think it will be. And the last question, I mean, especially with this pandemic, the number one excuse that I bet you hear a lot for online coaching and for just coaching in general is that, oh, I want to, but I just don't have the time to do it. I lack the time. If you use that excuse now, I don't know what's going on in your life, because everyone seems to have more time now than they had before. But what advice would you have for someone who, if they walked up to you and said, I really want to get in shape, but I just don't know how to get started? Because I feel so many people want to get in shape. They just lack the knowledge on how to do it.
Well, if they want to like get in shape, just hire a coach. If you don't know what you're doing, hire somebody that does know. I mean, that's the only way you're going to learn. That's the only way you're going to make progress. Um, I mean, if you say you don't have time, you do. You need to like write down your day. That's how I go through my day, because everybody asks me, well, how do you work 3 jobs? How are you, a full time student and do bodybuilding and all of that? And it's like, how do you have time for that? It's like, because I make time. I literally make every minute of my day count. And, I sit there with a planner all day, every day, and like every 30 minutes has something to do. So
Jesus.
I'm going I'm on the go from like 4:30 a.m. most days to, 7:30. So and I don't hit the sheets till like 8:30. So I mean, I just make everything count. And Mondays are my only days off from all of my jobs and everything. So that's when I get most of my schoolwork done anyways. Um but, anytime that I find myself I have some free time during the day, I'll find something that needs to get done, go ahead and get it done, because I don't procrastinate at all. Like that's the main issue that people have. They wait till the very last minute to do something. And, if you have the time now, go ahead and do it, you know.
We are the polar opposite of people, basically that. So I work nights, like I told you before, so I'm going to bed normally around the time that you're getting up. So I always find that fascinating when I have people on. But 3 jobs and going to, Jesus, I mean, that's just, I can't even imagine what that must be like. I mean, just having the motivation to get up and go to classes for me some days was just like enough. Where I was I can't do it, you know. But so yeah, that's just incredible. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Bri enough for coming on the podcast and sharing her journey. And we wish you nothing but the best. And everyone, go and give her a follow on our Instagram page. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. Just beware, you will get inspired to, get in shape and stop eating those Twinkies and get off that couch. But Bri, I couldn't think of a better way to end this. Could you give us a front double buy? And she's 21. She's 21. Look at that. She's 21 years old, everyone. That's just absolutely insane. I mean, oh my good God. So everyone be inspired to go and work out now after seeing that. But again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.